What is up? And welcome back to the CKM Red Rugby League channel, wherever you're watching from. Hope you are having a wonderful morning or evening, depending on which hemisphere you belong to. It is Tuesday, and usually I'd be saying that can only mean that it's time for team lists, but there's no NRL this week. So I'm not going to intro it like that because I'll feel like I'm cheating on Team List Tuesday, and we can't have that. So as ever, Luke Jobson is here to join me as we take you through the preview for Game 2 of State of Origin. How are you going, mate?
I'm very good, mate. It's definitely going to be a bit of a different Tuesday preview. Obviously, no NRL this weekend, but we have State of Origin, both the men's and the women's. You know, majority of it will be men's based, but I've got a couple of ideas for the women's game as well on Friday night. It's going to be different, but it's going to be good. It's going to be real good. How are you, mate?
I am very well. I'm excited to get into this. Obviously, plenty of talking points. There's some changes on both sides of the fence, and it's going to be interesting to see how we both go on this one. We've not had much time to talk about which way either of us are going for this fixture, so it'll be interesting to hear the thoughts and go through the team list itself. So, with that, we'll jump straight into the New South Wales Blues, and it is pretty much an unchanged lineup. Of course, the big exception will be Jake Trbojevic. He is missing. Angus Crichton gets an Origin recall. Liam Martin retains his spot on the bench. That is the only real change to this New South Wales lineup. Daniel Saifiti keeping his spot in the props. Sims as well. There was a lot of talk maybe he would be bumped back to the bench. Maybe Martin would be pulled forward, but no. If it's not broke, don't fix it. And that's exactly what the New South Wales Blues are doing. It's a pretty strong lineup. Obviously, you saw exactly what Trbojevic in the centre can do. How dangerous is this New South Wales team right now, and how much of a job on do this Queensland side have to stop them from doing the sweep, basically, and making it a 2-game series?
Queensland are paddling up Crap Creek with their bare hands. That is probably the best way to describe it. It is a very strong New South Wales lineup, as we mentioned. The Panthers duo just didn't look out of place. We had no questions on Cleary. We knew how good he was. The question was around Luai and whether he was going to justify his starting position instead of White. What we saw is a masterclass from Luai that can sign White into the 14, and it very well could mean next year that Luke Keary has a very, very tough battle on his hands to regain his 6. That was earmarked for him at the start of the year. Queensland, there's a lot of changes. There are a lot of changes. The notable one is Reece Walsh, the 7-gamer, the current Warrior, has been named to start at fullback. It's going to be interesting. This is a big-time stage for any player. So many players who have played 10, 20, 30 Origin games always say they get nervous before Origin. It's something different. Reece Walsh is 18. To put that into perspective, he's 6 years younger than me. I definitely do not consider myself to be that old. He's 18. He was released from Brisbane to move to New Zealand to play for the Warriors. He's played as many games as thousands of NRL players have over the past 110 years, and he's been called up on what's by far the biggest stage of his life so far. New South Wales are going to pepper him. They're going to pepper Kurt Capewell. Somehow he retained his centre position. I don't know how. But Turbo's going to run rings around Kurt Capewell. I have no doubt. The back 7 outside of that is not changed. The forwards, on the other hand, Welsh keeps his prop start. He was unlucky to be KO'd in game 1. He looked the best of the forwards for the limited time he was there. McCulloch comes in to hooker. There is no Harry Grant. Ben Hunt on the bench. I think I would have preferred him in the 9. He's an 80-minute player. He is an 80-minute hook at Origin level. McCulloch is very good out of dummy half. Great service, great defense, but he's not the spark that Queensland need through the middle. Ben Hunt can give them that spark. Josh Papali'i was suspended for game 1. He's now back in the side. He'll take the second starting prop position. Jai Arrow, Felice Kafusi, who was under a couple of question marks as to whether he'd retain the spot. He retains at second row, and Big Tino is at lock. Your bench, Ben Hunt, Moe Fodawaker. The $1 million man of David Feeder is in the 16, which he had some good touches to start in game one, but then fell away. And Frankie Molo, it's about time. Big Frankie, I make no secret that he is a gun of a player. He is just a bustling forward. He's a shining light in a struggling Cowboys side over the last couple of years. He has his origin berth. Cohen Hesson, Ronaldo Mulatalo, the two reserves for Queensland. It is worth noting, though, that I believe Jai Arrow was admitted to hospital with a viral infection. It's the second time in 2 games that that's happened to a Queenslander, that they have been admitted to hospital. He is expected to play, but it's something to keep an eye out on. New South Wales is going to run rings around Queensland. Yes, it's at Suncorp. Yes, it is a fortress. But Queensland just didn't look the part in game one. There was nothing there that screamed a challenge. There's nothing there that screamed consistency or lightning sparking moments that would set this team apart. New South Wales absolutely monstered Queensland on the left-hand side with Sims, with Latrell, with Brian To'o. They destroyed the right edge of Capewell and Felt. Tommy Trebojevic had a day and a half floating around as a second fullback. Bloody Josh Adokar ran for 100 metres and was the quietest man. That never happens. James Tedesco was able to take a step back, sit in the back seat and just enjoy the ride. Did what he had to do, provided his sparks. It's not like he played poorly. It's just Tommy Turbo and Latrell Mitchell had a day out. And Queensland, I don't think, are going to be able to respond to that. The players have come out and said that it was, verbatim from Val Holmes, it was shit watching a replay of the first game and going through what happened and where they went wrong. COVID depending, we're knocking on wood here because things are starting to get a little out of control in Sydney. Knock on wood, it's going to be packed out at Suncorp. We hope that it's going to be packed out. But I'm going to let you do your tips first, Matty. I don't see a packed out Suncorp providing enough of a boost with the discrepancies in these two lineups to see Queensland go over the top. You can give your overall tips, your multis and all of that. New South Wales 13+.
Okay, so we'll go through some of the stats first. So, of course, New South Wales did win game one, won it in emphatic fashion. But the last times that New South Wales actually won game one and went on to win game two since the turn of millennium are the year 2000, 2003, 2014, and 2018. That's not the most convincing. The last time that either of these teams, that either side won game one and two, was 2016. That was Queensland when they swept game one and two. So teams that do well in game one, when the team that hasn't done so well in game one has to come back and try and keep the series alive, it lights a little bit of a fire. I mean, you look at the winning margins of the last however many game twos, it tends to be a tight affair. The most common winning margin is anywhere between 1 and 12 points. So immediately I'm drawn to that. I believe that the Blues do win this one. I think that it will be tighter. I mean, if you were just to go by players on paper and players on paper alone, you'd say that the Blues are the stronger side. They've got the greater amount of talent. They've got the greater amount of experience. I mean, as you touched on, they've got Reece Walsh at 1. They've got Capewell, who is a top quality second rower, playing centre because they are so strapped in that centre position at the minute. I mean, arguably you could have put Holmes to fullback and you could have put the Tabuai-Fido's name was bounced around plenty, but I don't think you want Tabuai-Fido outside Capewell or vice versa. And it's very tricky, and Queensland are going to have to really tighten up that edge. I mean, going off those numbers, if you're 2 and 3 at Capewell, it means that Jai Arrow, as you mentioned, questionable at the minute, so maybe Fafita might be your defending second rower on that side. He's good for a tackle, is Dave Fafita, but he's a better attacking threat than he is a defensive threat. How many highlights do you see of David Fafita coming out of the line and crunching somebody, or him making a defensive decision that influences the attacking play in a positive manner? So it's questionable. The Queensland have got a wealth of issues. You know, McCulloch would not have been your first choice 9 at the beginning of this season. You got Marnie out, you've got Grant out behind that as well. You know, Jake Friend retiring could have potentially been a shout. McCulloch's there to do a job. Hunt is there as your rotation. Munster was absent in game 1, you know, bar his indiscretion, which went to the judiciary. You know, Cherry Evans is going to have to step up, and he's going to have to encourage some of these younger players, some of these more inexperienced players to step up and come out of their shell a little bit and really take the game to the Blues. But for my tips, I don't see this one being a blowout. I think that the margin stays 1-12, but I'm going to go the Blues. I think that Dane Gagai was very quiet in game 1, and it's rare to see him go 2 Origin games without a try. So I'm going to say Gagai to get over. Trbojevic, I mean, he gets where water can't. He was absolutely everywhere. He's a solid shout for me. And my outside chance of an anytime try scorer, I'm going to say Isaiah Yeo. I just think that big body of his, he's going to draw defenders in close to the line. You see him used as a ball player a lot in game 1. I think that he'll probably show it close to the line, try and find a way over himself. And I'm also going to say that this one's total points runs to under 46.5. I can't see this one being a high scorer. And I know that I say that off the back of the Blues absolutely routing Queensland. But this kind of game and this kind of mentality does something to a player that forces them to become a better player. And it's going to make them step up. It's going to make them find that little bit extra. So if you're going by the paper and the paper alone, Blues. If you're going by the unpredictability and the intensity that a game like State of Origin brings, it could still be anybody's game. But I think that that intensity and that rise in emotion and all those factors sees this one being tighter than a lot of people expect. So I'm going to say that this one runs for under 46.5.
For those that are brave enough to follow Matthew's tips in a multi, mind you, we gave each other our tips beforehand. It pays out at $301 on Sportsbet for a same game multi at 7:45 on Tuesday, depending on when you watch this. So plenty of value. The odds suggest it doesn't get up, but it's Origin. Anything can happen. He did get Dan Saifidi at 950 in Origin 1. So he's on a bit of a roll here. I do also have the habit of being one game too early. I said Gagai in game 1. It wouldn't surprise me if Gagai goes over. I'm not going that way, though. I am looking at Sportsbet right now, and the immediate value shot for me is Latrell Mitchell anytime try scorer. Currently paying at $2.10. It doesn't scream value. You don't think of a 2-10er as your typical punt, but this is a guy that scored a double in Origin 1. He's playing in some really good form. They're going to pepper that right edge again. They're going to have to watch for Tommy Trbojevic coming out the back. They're going to have to watch James Tedesco coming around the back. They've got Jerome Luai who's going to float that way. It would not surprise me in the slightest to see Latrell get over for 1, if not 2. I agreed with Matthew so much on the Trbojevic try that I'm going with him for 2. He is in the best form that I have seen any player since I've started watching the NRL. And yes, as a Parramatta fan, that hurts because I saw Jared Haynes single-handedly carry my beloved Parramatta Eels in 2009. Trbojevic is just lights out at the moment. He scored 3 on the weekend. He set up another 3 or 4. Basically put the team on his back for a 20-minute period against the Titans. I have no doubt he's going to be allowed to play that floating rotation role with Tedesco where he can go both sides. Turbo goes over for 2, especially with Capewell still in the centres. I have no doubt about it. Queensland definitely get over. I've got him going through Kyle Felt. I think I said Felt in game 1. I'm sticking to my guns here. He's going to be, in all likelihood, up against Brian To'o, who is a good jump, but he also gives away about 7 inches to Kyle Felt. They have to target Felt. Munster and Daly have to target Brian To'o through the air, and that's where Felt's going to come in handy. Yes, To'o will have Trbojevic to help him out. Yes, he'll have Latrell to help him out. They are very good jumpers in their own right. But if Felt gets up close to the line and has a clean grab, he's over. You can't stop him that close. That in itself was paying $25. I also added Queensland for an alternative first half handicap of plus 20.5. I absolutely think this is going to be a blowout, but they're not going to be down by 24, 25, 30 in the first half. This is still a representative game. There is pride on the line. There is an Origin series on the line in Queensland home stadium. I had to think about that for a second. There is no chance, in my mind, that Queensland are down by 22 plus in the first half, going into halftime. They will not be able to come back from that. If they can at least hang on. Even if it's a 12 or a 14-point gap, they're at least holding on at halftime, and there will still be that belief that they can come back. If it's past 20, it's game over. So I'm going with Queensland on the plus 20.5 handicap. You throw them all together, same game multi. On Sportsbet, it's currently paying $31.25. Not the outlandish odds that Matt has, but I think that still screams a little bit of value. I'm still thinking New South Wales 13 plus, though.
Okay, we have a slight disagreement on our hands. I believe in 1 to 12. You believe in 13 plus. We both go the Blues, though. Do let us know what you think, how you'll be backing, and who you'll be going on this one. And I think we've covered enough of the men's game there. Let's give a little bit of lip service to the women's game now. And another interesting lineup. You got the Queensland Maroons versus the New South Wales women. Of course, there is an absolute plethora of talent on display in that one. You've only got to look at the Blues side. Vete Welsh, Surgis, Isabel Kelly, Tiana Penatani, Millie Boyle, Kezi Apps. You've got so much talent in that Blues side. I'm definitely backing them. Ali Brigginshaw, of course, who's now playing at the Valley Diehards, I believe. She's going to be wearing the 13 shirt. She's usually a half. So interesting to see how she goes in the 13. But what's your thoughts for the women's game?
It's a tough one. Like you said, Brigginshaw, at her best, is one of the world's best players for the women. There is no doubt about it. But she has been displaced by a 21-year-old, if I've done the math right. When is her birthday? Taryn Aitken, her birthday is July 14th. So currently a 21-year-old, soon to be 22 in the 6th. And Zara Tamara, a Kiwi-born Queenslander. If you're born in New Zealand, that's in Queensland. They've displaced Brigginshaw out of the halves, but there is no discounting that. And, the thing that we're glossing over here is that, we always say that the game is changing. In the men's game, the 13 is becoming more and more like a third half. Brigginshaw will be a third half. I have no doubt that she'll stay on the full 60 for the Maroons. She's too good of a player to not be on for the entire time. As for New South Wales, like you said, a plethora of talent. Isabel Kelly, scored a double in the first, real live televised State of Origin at North Sydney a couple of years ago. Can't discredit her, but you got Maddie Studden, who is an absolute stud, no pun intended. The St. George half. I saw you cringe. It's fine. She is an absolute gun. She's going to be running off some great service out of Keely Davis. She'll be there, supporting out the back, waiting for the offload from the likes of Boyle, from the likes of Talfa. Like you said, Kezi Apps, Hannah Southwell's going to be running straight through the gups. And you got, Holly Wheeler is a name that keeps popping up in team of the weeks across NRLW, across women's leagues in Australia at the moment. She's on the bench. She's going to have a superb impact when she comes on, no matter what her role might be. Tamika Upton's going to be one of the big chances, as will Julia Robinson for Queensland if they do want to get up. They are playing it at the Sunshine Coast, mind you. Hopefully it's a packed out Sunshine Coast Stadium. It's going to be a cracking game. Robinson has been lights out for the Broncos the past couple of years. She's fantastic. Back on a state league level. It's going to be a huge battle. Robinson v. Surgis. Lauren Brown v. Isabel Kelly. Much like a couple of years ago when it was your Chambers against your Josh Morris, your Brett Morris. That's the comparison. That's the battle. If the centre pairing of Surgis and Kelly can beat Brown and Robinson, the Blues get up. If Upton's able to dummy and go and put Robinson or Brown through a hole on the short side, and they do it twice, I've got Queensland going up. I don't think it's going to be as much of a blowout as you think. I'm going to say the Blues. I am going the Blues. I don't think there's much in terms of betting for Origin 2 for the women. I can't actually... Oh, here we go. Only 3 markets, which is quite disappointing. Queensland are the favourites, mind you. But I'm trusting the Blues. I have my faith. I'm going 1 to 12, paying $3.25. It's always a tight game. It's always tight. Just for whatever reason, these are some of the best ladies that are playing football in Australia. All of them want to be a Gillaroo at the end of the year, going into the World Cup. This is their one game where it's state v state. And they have to make that mark on the representative level if they want to be in a calculation for the World Cup. They're all going to leave it out on the line, but I am going New South Wales 1 to 12.
I will be joining you on New South Wales 1 to 12. So, as the history books tell it, there has only been 5 origins for the women's game. The Blues have won 4 out of 5, with the exception of last year, a 24-18 win for the Queensland Maroons. Again, as you mentioned, always tight. Only one of these games has had a result that's finished in excess of 12 points, the winning margin. That was only the second meeting between these two. That was a 22-6 New South Wales win. The rest of them, you got an 8-4 in favour of NSW, 16-10 again in favour of the Blues, and a 14-4 in favour of the Blues. And then that solitary Queensland win, 24-18. I'm definitely back in the Blues. I'm thinking 1 to 12. It's going to be tight. The talent that the Blues have got is just unreal. I'm going to say that Surgis probably gets over in that one as well. How many times do you see her just pick up the ball and she's got those long striding legs and she just goes for it? Like once she's up in open space, you've got no chance of catching her. There's nobody in the league that quite moves like she does. And yeah, I'm going to go with that. Blues all the way, 1 to 12. But it's, yeah, as you say, it's disappointing that there's not more markets for us to go out there and give more insights to. But it is exciting that the women's game is getting a little bit more notoriety, because these women are athletes, and they deserve to be treated as such, and they deserve to be on the same platform and celebrated as such. So, but I think we've done our little bit there. We've covered what we can of the women's game and what we can of the men's game as well. We're not much better for that, to be fair, but we've had fun doing it. All that's left is to thank you for joining us once more. Enjoy the week's rugby league. Of course, there are other games being played, as we mentioned on yesterday's broadcast. got Serbia versus Montenegro this weekend as well. So if there's no NRL, definitely worthwhile checking that out over at Sportsflick. And no, thank you for joining us. And I'll let Luke outro us.
Yeah, like we said, big time game. You've got International Rugby League at Belmore on Sunday as well. Get around it. Malta, Fiji, and Lebanon all there for a festival of rugby league. You've got live rugby league coming out of Serbia. They're playing Albania. You've got your UK Super League. You've got your State of Origin. It's a big time week. Thank you very much for joining us here on the CKM Rugby League channel. You can find us on Facebook, on Instagram, on Recast as well. Go have a look. Support us. It's free. You get all the content plus a couple of extras. And we will see you guys next week on Monday for the Rugby League Report.
See you then.